Because that one is all-encompassing and all-embracing and all-pervading, it has no walls and therefore it has no fear and it has no enemies. It's deathless. It was there in the beginning and now and forever shall be. Ajuni did not take birth because it created birth and death. So it's beyond birth and beyond death. Self-illumined, self-created, and known and realized only by the grace of the Guru. This, in a very short nutshell, capsule form, is the message of Mool Mantar. And then the command, which is also the name of the Bani, is Jap. Jap is the name of the Bani. Jap is also the only command that Babaji has given us here. Jap. And what? That was there in the beginning, that truth that was there, that shall always be there, that is true now, have we such, ho se be such. Now Jap. There are levels of Jap. There are stages of Jap. But Jap is our dharam. Jap is what we need to do. Jap is what this Bani is. In this Bani, the methodology of Japna, the metaphysics of Japna, and the deep meaning of what Jap is explained in Japji. People have sometimes thought or said that Ji is an epithet of respect. Perhaps. But Ji is also the being inside. Oh, the being inside. Oh, the soul inside. Jap, chant. We're going to talk a little bit about the meaning of Jap before we proceed to Soche Soch Na Hove, Je Sochi Lafar. Jap begins with the chanting of the tongue. Just like when a child is young, very little, the toddler, sometimes you get, at least in India they did that, and even over here people do that, they get him a wheeler. You know, he needs support, right? And then when the legs gain strength, you take away the support and the child begins to run so fast that the mother can barely catch him. So the chanting, the recitation by the tongue is that support that you give yourself, that anchor, that hook on which you hang your breath and your consciousness, and you chant loudly. Many times people who have grown up in India think of the time when they used to learn their tables really loud and clear. 2 ones are 2, 2 twos are 4. That is the first stage of chanting. That is the first stage of jap. And then the jap goes within you, and you do it as Viji was sharing with us. It becomes a part of your being. And it becomes not conscious. It becomes rhythmic. It becomes twined with your breath. That's jap, ajapa jap. And then it becomes so much a part of you that you start living it. That jap of the Mool Mantar, of the One. What is one without the qualities of one? The essence of one becomes a part of your being. And that's where the transformation happens and life changes, and slowly you take on the qualities of that one. And until that happens, we are all in that progression. And the ultimate is that you become one with the one with that Jyot, one with that light, and there is no difference at that point between you and the source that you came from. So that is the progression of jap. Now in the pauris that follow, pauris, these are the steps that lead us to our evolution, steps that lead us to self-realization, steps that will take us closer to the One, because by the virtue of having come into this life and taken birth, there has been a separation. But we carry that pilot light within us. even though we are separated, we are a part of that one, and that one is a part of us. Guru has said many, many times that he's not far from you. He's near you. He's within you. Or she is within you. That force, that energy is within you. It's a part of you. So we have to be awakened to that realization. We have to wake up to that realization.
I have a question.
As we go to the next stage, just going back to the jap part a little bit. When you say to jap, are you saying to jap complete Japji Sahib, or just the one word you are saying that one should focus on saying to jap that part?
Okay, so there are different hukams. Doing nitnem is one of the things that Guru has asked us to do. Every Sikh has to do nitnem, right? But when we are talking about jap, the chanting, it's the moon, the Shabad, the Gur mantra that the Guru has given us is Vaheguru, Vaheguru Gur mantra. That becomes the part of the rhythm, of the beat of the heart. But there are various forms of japna. The kirtan is japna, singing his praises is japna, doing nitnem is japna, right? Sitting in meditation is japna. So japna is remembering, getting in tune with, synchronizing, getting your thoughts more still, and becoming that laser vision, which is all collected. It's all part of the process and various forms of japna. I think doing any of these, all of these, or some of these is all okay. So, hope I've answered that question. So then we move on to the steps. The first step Babaji talks about is Soche, Soch na hove, Je, Sochi Lakwa. Now, I remember when I was younger, the prevalent translation or explanation of this body used to be that you think 1,000 thoughts and reflection alone shall not get you anywhere. However, the scholars that are authoritative scholars of our faith and people who have delved really deep into it have said that this is not about thinking. Gurbani is the voice of God, is the revealed voice of God, but it is also contextual. It is of the times. Or not of the time in terms of limited to that time, but spoken in that period where certain rituals and certain forms of worship were prevalent. And because these are steps to guide us, to tell us how to, where to, when to, which way to go, Babaji has explored those and rejected them and said this is not the way. You know, you look at a guidebook that tells you where to go, it warns you, okay, this is not the right way. Take the highway, then take this road, then take this exit. It's like that. As Anu was saying yesterday, I loved a phrase that she used, "Patli sadak se nikal gayi." You know, I slipped away. I took the little road that would take me, you know, the little pagdandi that guided me. So, what were some of the ways that were prevalent and that were part of the mythology or the rituals of the time? One of them was that you go to pilgrimages, you do tirath and ishnan, and you get purified. You know, even till today, there are Kumbh Melas every few decades or every decade or whatever. Tens of thousands of people go there and they take a dip. And it is believed by them that they shed their paap, their sins, and they become purified. Babaji in this line is telling us that, let me tell you right off the bat, my friend, this is not the way to be purified. If you think you are pure just by going to these so-called pure rivers, right, and taking a dip there, this is not the way. Sochya sochna hove, je sochi lakwa. Anji.
Does this reconcile with our taking a dip in Harmandir Sahib?
That is a very good question.
I think it does, but you should not, you don't purify
Let me, yeah, absolutely right.
The
if-
way you purify yourself is within yourself.
Exactly.
Tirath
Amritsar,
naam,
Tirath
Tirath
naam
naam,
jap, Tirath naam hai. Naam is the one where you have to do the Ishnan. And, yes.
So the common practice is not in keeping with.
That itself won't get you there.
Yes.
The devotion, if it make you feel good, it might help you, where it's not in itself, unless you're also doing it inside.
Many
it doesn't
people-
mean for that thing,
Yes.
but the eternal one is the one that matters.
And many people will tell you that the Pani is, the Sarovar is so charged with the Pani, and you hear those stories about the crow becoming white and all of that, and the cure. And people who go there with that faith have seen miracles happen. But let's get this. What we are talking about here is not the miracles that will get rid of our disease or whatever, but it's about oneness with that one. This progression is about that ultimate union, and that cannot be gotten by taking dips anywhere.
And that's the real miracle.
That is the real miracle. The miracle when the Naam, Hanji.
There's also Bauli Sahib, which has 84 steps
Yes.
to the.
Yes.
So it's a similar kind of a philosophy.
It's a similar ritual, you can say. Now, let me try and answer that, and then maybe someone else can throw some light on it. The recitation of Japji, those many times, I mean, Gujot, Anand and I tried to do it one time just because we'd heard that it's a very good thing to do. I gave up after, I don't know, maybe half the steps, but Anand and Gujot kept going. Gujot kept going with that. Now, perhaps the force of that Vani brings about a change in you. Perhaps there is a transformation that happens that shifts your consciousness. And in that shift of the consciousness, you start living a different life and transformation happens. It's all about transformation. It's all about, you take a piece of iron, it's all about putting it through the fire and melting it and changing its shape. That's what it is. If we come back with the same walls and if we come back with the same consciousness, then nothing has changed. Then we have gone through the motions. And Gurbani and progression of the soul is not about going through the motions. It's about internal change. If these things help us, they are tools, wonderful. But then you have to see if that transformation within us happened. Does anyone?
They are not end in themselves. That's the issue. And that's where I think people get stuck.
So event is not bath in the water. Event is being there, experiencing the field and experiencing what else is going on.
And
That's whole
being
experience.
transformed. The change inside you. You come back a different person.
See, the danger is if you believe in the miraculous part of it, then you sometimes, most people will just focus on that, and that's a distraction from the real spiritual path.
True.
You won't think I've done it and that's it.
Right, I'm done
That's what
now.
happens to
We're
most
never
people.
done in that regard. We're not done just by doing something once. It's a constant chiseling of our consciousness. It's a constant progression into that divine consciousness. And we have to constantly be watchful, vigilant about our thoughts, about our actions, about what we are doing, how we are interacting, right? Okay, so socha sochna hovi, je sochi lakwar. So this was one of the things that was prevalent, that you go take a dip, get purified, and
Just one question I have is, what does the literal meaning of soche mean here?
so
Because there are always two interpretations.
Yeah.
So what
So-
the Punjabi says about soche?
So
Shoch word in which Shochna is
cleansed. Jadon
This
ਤੁਸੀਂ
particular,
ਆਪ-
the double matra, whatever it is.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਸੁੱਚਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ.
That's one interpretation. Some people do the thought,
Huh,
some people
yeah.
do this.
But the more
What does the literal meaning means here? I'm just
Literal meaning can be either one, right? Literal, but in the whole context, I think what she is making more sense. Say
Yeah.
more sense because if
ये
you see
मस्किन
the
जी भी
four of
नहीं
them-
समझाते हैं.
See, if you see the four sentences, each of them can correspond to
a
different
different
sects with
ritual, a
different
different thing that was
If you
prevalent
see
at
the
the
four of
time.
them together, then this makes more sense.
Actually,
Region.
Sochna, cleansing, then silent, different sects doing different kinds of yoga, different rituals.
So it's
The first one is the ritual.
In this party, in this step, Babaji describes the different prevalent rituals that were happening and says this is not it, this is not it. Okay, Vichi was going to say something. Paul will come to it. One second.
Japji Sahib, the Vichaar is the whole Guru Granth Sahib. Okay. कोई भी चीज़ गुरु साहब ने doubt वास्ते नहीं रखी. Everything is being explained more and more. Later on, in Japji Sahib, you will go and you will see the explanation of this part. It says, Tirath Nama Jetis Pama. So, उथे दसिया. फिर आगे चलोगे, कबीर दास जी दसते पहने. तीरथ जाओ तो हाँ करते. जे तीरथे जाके साड़ी होमे वध गई है. And you come back and you tell people, I went to Harmandir Sahib, I went to Hazur Sahib, मैं हेमकुंड साहब गया. This is not very purifying you. ये होमे होर वध गई है. एक पार नाती, दो पार लत्थी चढ़े हो. मतलब कि एक दे तुसी ना लिया, ते दूसरा दे कहने में होमे अपने अंदर होर चढ़ा ली. बाणी दे कहने में you will see there so many places it has been explained. जिस कह रहे सी तीरथ नामण जाओ, तीरथ नाम है. ते असी किथे गया? ये साडे अंदर ही गया तीरथ. तीरथ शब्द विचार है ते वो दसणगे बार-बार. सो ऐसी एक्सप्लेनेशन सारी लेकिन गुरबाणी जिहड़ी दसी है. और नाले ये चीज़ याद रखनी चाहिए है. प्रथाए बाणी दसदी है. प्रथाए बाणी महापुरुष बोल दे सांझी सगल जहाने. If Guru Sahib said once this particular thing, it is applicable at that time, it applicable 100% today, and 1,000 years from now it's going to be. And it's not applicable to only those people, to us and everybody, whether it's a Christian or is a Muslim, everybody applies to all that. So a cheez soch ke when we will try to explain, understand this, and you will find the meaning of that. और नाले जिथे भी डाउट होवे गुरु ग्रंथ साहब इसे करके सानू सहज पाठ करने वास्ते किया गया है. सो तुसी पढ़ोगे ते जेड़े तुहाडे अंदर डाउट होएगा that will clarify it as you go through the Guru Granth Sahib.
Yeah, I
So
would
the question
reinforce,
is,
when I reinforce this thing about stage part, a lot of us focus on just certain lines that we hear often in some shabads or things that just fit what we want to think. And the nice thing about doing a sage part, as long as you're paying attention, listening to the meanings, is that things get repeated so many times in different ways. And you, instead of focusing on some individual word, you eventually get the sense, overall sense of what the Guru is saying in many, many places he is saying. So it's good to get the deeper common threads, because those are the essential ones, and those are the ones that show up so many times that you see it in different ways in different contexts. And that's why you start sensing, what is to be taken exactly as the Guru says it, and other things may not be, maybe just metaphors or examples. And you see through that and get the deeper meaning if you see it from many different quotations in the Guru Granth Sahib in different places. So I just wanted to reinforce that it's very valuable to read the whole Guru Granth Sahib.
Read the Sri Guru Granth
Not just
Sahib.
read some parts. And the Sahaj part has a real value because you can do it slowly. You can take years finishing
Do
the
a
whole thing.
page a day.
Yeah, do a page a day even and understand it. You get so much more out of it than anything else because you get this deeper and broader sense of the Guru's message.
And I just wanted to add, my own interpretation of this line was Soch is philosophical thought. He's talking about how many times you think about. That's what I already thought. But Shoch is with Shasha and it has different matra on it. Shah, not Soch. So it's not.
Gurbani which Sir and Shah come for each other very often.
There's no
Hanji,
show.
It's very commonly.
But it's not a Hora, it's a Kanora. So it's a different word totally.
Yeah, the reason I think her interpretation makes more sense
Hanji.
because if you see the next three lines,
It's a chup.
it's telling you three different kinds of
Four
rituals.
different kinds of ways, or three different.
And so it fits much better with that. By itself, you can say too much intellectualization won't get you there.
Hanji.
That would make
And
sense
that
also.
may be true
Right.
too.
But
That is
that
true.
can make sense, but if you see it with the other three,
Mhm.
then this one seems to make more sense.
So Professor Sahib said he did the analysis for the grammar of it, and then he came to the conclusion that it should be the such. So they did the intellectual analysis on it and with the rest of the Bani. Professor Sahib Singh the TK with sab to pehle unhone
So
yahi
he's
explained
also
it
saying
that
that.
how did he interpret that this is a such and this is not.
You
I
know,
think it's important to also understand from the other angle what does, because I don't understand from Guru Granth Sahib, so I can't tell, but I can ask him, for example, if Soch was the right meaning, what does rest of Guru Granth Sahib talks about Sochna? We know about Sucham, You know, there are so many other instances where Guru Granth Sahib mentioned that, and it definitely makes sense. And
Let's
I am
move
with
on.
it.
Let's-
But what
let's
about
move on, yeah.
Soch? What does Bani talks about Soch as such to see
ਉਹਨੂੰ ਚਿੰਤਾ ਕਿਹਾ ਗਿਆ
ਉਹਨੂੰ ਚਿੰਤਾ ਕਿਆ
ਉਹਨੂੰ ਚਿੰਤਾ ਗਿਆ
That's what I want to
ਚਿੰਤਾ
know.
ਹੀ ਦੀ
So
ਸੇ
I
ਸਭ ਤੋਂ
think that makes sense then.
ਨਹੀਂ ਸਿੰਘ
Chintan, Chintan.
ਸੋ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਚਿੰਤਾ ਕਿਹਾ ਗਿਆ
Well, the Guru Granth Sahib does tell you in one point, it tells you many places that intellectual thought alone won't get you anywhere, that debating and arguments won't get you. Other places it also tells you that Vicharna is
Yeah,
very
reflection.
important. Reflection is very
Reflection.
important.
Sikhi, Sikhya, Gur, Vichar.
So you can argue that
Yeah.
this Sochana this can make sense in that context if it was by itself.
If it was by itself. But you know what follows the line is also very important. You cannot pull it out of its context.
Let's hear the rest of it. Please.
So let's go on to the next of it. Chup hai chup na ho gayi, je lai rahan lifta. So then there were people who thought that we're going to take a dip and we will be purified. And the others felt that, you know what? I have to become truthful and I have to become like the divine that is forever truthful. And it is very difficult to practice truth all the time, because we are human, we falter, and some of what we say may be just our perspective, which it always is. So perhaps the best way out of this is not to say anything, to be quiet. Even today, there are lots of groups that make you go through that practice of silence, because silence is a beautiful thing. When your mind stops chattering, which it does all of the time, it is only then that you create the space for that inner voice and you're able to hear it. So there was, and there still are people who felt that perhaps the best way to be spiritual, to evolve in this practice, to get closer to the divine is to disengage completely with the tongue, with the words, and become quiet. Chup tadlo, mon vart tadlo. And for years, they wouldn't say a word. They kept quiet. They would be quiet. They would write things, वो जी वो साधु बड़े महान ने वो गल नहीं करते हैं कि वो सिर्फ लिखते हैं उन्होंने मौन व्रत तारा हुआ है because he doesn't want to say anything. So Babaji in this, Guru Nanak Sahib in this, he has debunked this practice and he has said, look bud, I know what's going on. You may have zipped your mouth, but your thoughts are running 19 to the dozen. I mean, in the blink of an eye, you are thinking 1,000 thoughts. If you have a conflict with someone, and you are walking away from that conflict and saying, okay, I'm going to be quiet, but your mind is chattering away. The inner noise has not been stilled. If you are thinking something, you're posing the question yourself and you're giving the answer yourself. You are having a dialogue with that person. Even if that dialogue is not couched in audible words, you are doing that. And we all do that. Sometimes there are people that agitate us and we walk away from them because we don't want conflict. We don't want to confront them because it's a very unpleasant thing to deal with people who are always wanting to get a rise out of you or wanting to disturb your equilibrium, and you say, you know what, I'm not going to engage, and you walk away. But you walk away without the stillness of the mind and you're saying, you know what, I should have said this. You know what, next time he or she says this, I'm going to say this. Well, what exactly did they mean by saying this? The questions and the answers and the process of that chatter is continuing in our mind, even if we have zipped our mouth, even if we are quiet. Even those mon vartataris, even though they have conquered their tongue, they have not conquered their mind. And our process is that of conquering the mind. Man jeete jig jeet. We have to still the mind. We have to conquer the mind. We have to purify the mind. Man tu jyot sarup hai. We have to become that light. And that does not happen just by sitting in a cave or in a room and saying, okay, I am not going to talk. Now, some good things may happen if you are quiet for a whole week. You get in touch with yourself. You understand how much chatter is going on. And perhaps some stillness will follow. And that is a different practice. Like if you set aside 2 hours, 1 hour every day to get in touch with yourself, get in touch with your breath, get in touch with the inner voice. That's not the silence that Guru Sahib is talking about. That's a different practice. But this ritual or this way of life to get to God, or this tradition of becoming a Mon Vartatari is what Babaji is saying. It's not going to get you anywhere. Chup pyar chup na hove, je lai rahan live tar. Your consciousness will not be in line with that oneness until then. Until then, this chup is not going to get you anywhere. So he has debunked the second prevalent way of spirituality or religiosity or religion that was pretty common at that time. Chup hai chup na hui, je lai rahan live tar. Pukhya pukh na utri, je banna puriya par. Another tradition was of fasting. I'm not going to eat. I'm going to practice austerity in terms of my intake. Every Monday I will not eat. I will not eat for a whole month to make my point of view. Some people have done that. Pukhya pukhna utri. And maybe through that process of purification, of not getting all those things into my body, perhaps I will cleanse myself. Babaji says, the real bhukh that you have, the real trishna, the desires, they don't end. You may be able to control for a while the hunger of your body, but you are not able to satiate the hunger that you are hankering after, the desires, the things you want. Even spirituality will become a hunger that is not satiated if you follow this path of deprivation, of forced words. He says, Je banna puriya par. Puriya here refers to the different, puris, or the different, I want to say the different, words, exactly, the different words. The different worlds of consciousness, and the different worlds of that are higher than this. We've heard Akal, Patal, and different worlds, different
realms.
Different realms. So you can collect the goods of all the worlds. You can collect everything that you can and have them in your grasp, and you will still not be satisfied.
So simplistic interpretation would be par is the weight.
It is the weight.
Okay, and puri is what you eat, for religious food that the pandits eat after doing ceremonies. So that could be another interpretation.
Well, what
It
is
comes to the same sense.
Yeah,
Right.
but
It's the same sense.
Yeah,
Whether
the
it's
essence of it here is
Right.
that
Deprivation won't get you.
deprivation and this kind of austerity,
both.
however you interpret it, whether it's the goods from the entire world or the different worlds, or it is partaking of that special food on auspicious occasions that pandits used to do, whatever it is, the essence is that this is not going to lead you anywhere. Getting control over your bodily hunger is not going to get you anywhere unless the thirst of your spirit is not satiated. Unless the contentment, bina santok nahi ko raje, wo bhukh nahi jayegi, unless there is deep contentment within you, until the desires, ichha purak sarv sukh data, right? Very often we think that all my wishes will be fulfilled. But the real fulfillment comes when those wishes disappear, when those desires go away, and the only desire that is left is to be in the presence. The only desire that is left is, okay, you know what, I don't want anything. You can pray, you go to Babaji's Hazuri on different occasions, and mangani khatam ho gaya, I want this, Babaji give me this, Babaji give me that. And then there are moments when you just go there and you are filled with so much gratitude and so much awareness of so much that you have, that you get a glimpse of that contentment. That you know what? Enough. You just close your eyes and you stand there and you say, I have enough. And thank you. And shukr hai, shukr hai, shukr hai. And all that I ask for is that I live in this gratitude. Mangana, mangana nika. All that I want is, I want your name. Har just mangna. Bas mainu wahi chahiye. Because somewhere deep down, you have realized that that is the answer to the book. Panchapu Atma Nam Ras Pokhe. Trapped in the 5 elements, the soul is really, really thirsting for, seeking the Nam Ras. And once that realization comes, you understand that if I skip a meal, or if I skip a day without eating, or if I skip a week, or if I skip months, that is not the way to my divine consciousness, or getting it, or self-realization, or liberation, or whatever you want to call that state of bliss, which is referred to Anand in our scripture. Pukhya pukhna utri, je banna puriya par, and then what? Sahas syanapa lak hoye ta ik na chale naal. Another way is that of the intellectuals, the scholars, the pandits, who have read everything, who know everything, who are the go-to people for advice, who are the people that you pay them to do the ardas for you. The scholars, the pandits, the know-alls, the go-to folks, the people who have studied the Vedas and the Shastras, and in our communities, the people who think they know so much. Babaji says, it doesn't matter how erudite you get. It doesn't matter how many books you have read. It doesn't matter how many Veds and Katevs and Shastras you have at the tip of your tongue. None of this is to any avail. Ik na chale naal. None of this, not one of this is going to go with you on that journey to that one, to your master, to that light. These things are going to be left behind. Yes, we are all into getting, all right, I'm going to get this degree, and then I'm going to get my master's, I'm going to get my PhD, and this will get me a job here. Those are steps to achieve success or survive in this world. Those are valid steps. Those will get us somewhere. A PhD is a good qualification. There's a lot of hard work entailed. And what will this get you? Hopefully, you will be hired as a professor in a good university. That's the goal. But getting that PhD, even in religion, is not going to get you to the door of Akal Purkh. It's going to get you to the door of that university where you might land a good job and lead a good life. It might get your name in print. He's a research scholar now. He's written up. His papers are published. He writes white papers. Right? Naam kama liya tusi duniya de vich. Because now you're a scholar. Now you're an intellectual. There's a lot of clout around the word intellectual. People will say, Tiji, that person is an intellectual. Meaning, a sharp person, knows everything. You talk to them and you come away very impressed by them. We all do that. We are kind of tongue-tied in front of people that we think have so much knowledge. We are afraid to challenge them, right? But Babaji is telling us, you know what? You can become very clever, you can become very sharp, you can become endowed with degrees, you can become very scholarly. You might have a lot of worldly intelligence. But not one of them is going to help you, is going to come to your aid. What is going to come to you is that pyar, that live, that consciousness that is purified, coming into the saran. All of those things. And then he asks the question, all right, I get it. I get this, that all of this stuff is not going to help me. Taking dips is not going to help me. Remaining quiet is not going to help me. Going on fast is not going to help me. Intellectual knowledge will not help me. Then what is going to help me? He poses the question, because that is the next question. All right, this is not going to help. Kiv sachiara hui hai, kiv kude tutte par. You are telling me this is not the way. Then tell me, please, Guruji. This was a dialogue between Siddhs and Guru Nanak Sahib. Then tell me, O Guru, O man of God, I have come to you, I'm asking you, I trust your word. Tell me, how do I become satyar? How do I become pure? How do I become like that truth? Because we already know that that one is the truth, that never changes, that is without death, that is without birth. How do I become that? How do I become that truth? Kiv satyara hui hai. How do I become that? Kiv kure tutte pal. This web of falsehood that I'm living in, this wall of that's blinding me. Different metaphors of explaining it. This falsehood that is forever my way of life. How will that change? Kiv satyara hui hai, kiv kure tutte par, and the answer is very beautiful and very simple. Hukam rajai chalna, Nanak likhya naal. The Guru says, a simple answer, but is it simple to understand? The next party will explain that. Hukam rajai chalna. Let me tell you, my child, the Guru says, there is one way, and only one way, to demolish that wall of ignorance, to demolish that wall of falsehood, to get out of that web that is entangling you, that is not letting you breathe freely, that is not letting you connect in a way that your connection is not broken. And that is to come into the hukam, to live by the hukam. Hukam rajai chalna, Nanak likhya naal. That writ is written. You have come with it. If God is one, or Akal Purakh is one, and Mool Mantra tells us about the essence, right? That means the gun of Akal Purakh, then those gun are one. Akal Purakh the gun hi Akal Purakh hai. Akal Purakh da naam hi Akal Purakh hai. That name is one. Akal Purakh da hukam hi Akal Purakh hai. The command of the king is the king. The king is not going to stand everywhere and say, this is the law. The command is written, the command is released, the laws are made, the laws are established. And those laws are Akal Purakh. So you violate those laws and you are removed from his dargah, from his court. You come within those laws, you operate within those laws, you get closer to him. It is very important for all of us to understand what that hukam is, because the way our Guru has told us to that purification, to becoming that light, to becoming that, achieving that oneness, is through understanding, practicing, and living by the hukam. Hukam rajai chalna, Nanak likhya naal. You have come with it. Vaheguru's hukam is within you. It's written on you. The very fact that you have taken birth is according to that hukam. The moment you have come into this world is that hukam. When you are going to leave that hukam, leave this world is that hukam. How you are going to live, your destiny has been charted by that hukam. Your DNA is per that hukam. Your height, your looks, your complexion, the blue, brown, pale eyes that you have is that hukam. All of it is hukam. You have come with it. That inner voice that pervades in you is the hukam. Everything that you are surrounded by, the planet on which you have come, vibrates with that hukam. The way the Mother Earth rotates around the sun is that hukam. The axis, the angle of that axis is the hukam. You change a little bit of that, and there is havoc. You don't take care of it. You violate that. You don't respect that. Mata Karat Mahat. You have the glaciers melting. You have the environment changing. You have the planet Earth becoming toxic to you. You have the tsunamis coming up. Why? Because you're not living in that hukam. It's a very, I don't know if you have time to go into it, but it's a wonderful subject of trying to understand what that hukam is. And many times people get away by saying, you know what, hukam na kiya jaye, I cannot tell what it is, so why bother? I don't understand it, whatever it is. No, it is our job, it is our responsibility to understand the hukam, because we shall be accountable. Dharam Rai jab lekha mange, an account will be taken of how we have lived our life. And as much as we have lived that life, according to the hukam, is the grades that we will get. Whether it's an A+++, or it's an F, you go right back into the dungeon where you have come from, is going to be the judgment. Because Vaheguru, Akal Purakh, has created the laws, okay, and is very merciful, but is also very just. So, hukam rajai, the way to live this life, is to understand the hukmis, hukam, and live by it. So let's rest over here. We've done just one pori, and hopefully next month we'll go into hukam, because that is an amazing, amazing concept to grapple. But once we get it, you know, we will be able to imbibe it and hopefully live it. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.